It's colder out here than usual. How you doing, Jamie? Jamie?
Nope.
Wait, what? All right. Let's go. Okay. So, Jamie, what's going on here? Your voice sounds a little different.
Yeah, I actually had to lock Jamie in a trunk for the afternoon.
Noah? No illusions?
That would be me.
Oh, gosh. All right, let's go. All right. Hello and welcome to Talk Heathen. I'm Eric Murphy, and this is No Illusions, host of The Scathing Atheist. One of the hosts of The Scathing Atheist. I'm so happy that you came, man. So it is January 13th, 2019. It is Season 3, Episode 2, and holy crap, I've got no illusions.
Oh,
all right.
Shucks. I'm just as excited to have you, Eric.
Aw, you're a liar. That's okay.
Well, we were going to crawl under the table and have each other later, but
we're not doing that? I mean, we can do that. Yeah. So just... You were up in the area doing god-awful movies. It's one of your shows, right?
Yeah. We just did a live show in Dallas because we figured the Cowboys fans could use something else to look at other than the game yesterday. And so we provided that for them, a little community service that we like to provide.
Well, I actually had an absolute blast going up there. I'm a huge fan of all of the stuff that you and the rest of Puzzle in a Thunderstorm do. I kind of just want to break it down. I really wanted to bring Noah on. Noah is a voice that has a lot. I mean, when he talks and when his show plays, it's not just about reaching out to theists, but it's about talking to each other. It's about having those conversations. And I really appreciate what you do. And you've been able to expand it to how many shows?
We're doing 4 shows now.
Okay.
So we've got almost the entire work week covered. We need a Friday show, but we've got The Scathing Atheist. That's our first show that turns 7 years old tomorrow. It's got its birthday coming up.
Holy shit, early happy birthday.
Yeah. I just realized that this morning. I'm super stoked about that. Our second show is The Skeptocrat because we like to talk politics, but sometimes it doesn't really fit in with the atheist theme of Scathing Atheist. We've also got a show called God Awful Movies where we review the absolute worst in Christian cinema. And then we just recently started a show with Tom and Cecil from the Cognitive Dissonance podcast called Citation Needed. It's a trivia show. It was originally a show that we created so that our fans that were atheists, that wanted to recommend our shows to non-atheists or to people who maybe were put off by the whole idea of atheism or had that sort of that stereotypical, angry, ranty concept of atheism, give them something to listen to as sort of a stepping stone to our other shows.
Sure. Yeah. The some of the inside jokes I could imagine be a little rough to jump into right away.
Yeah, well, that's the fault of my co-host Eli Bosnick. I have a strict policy. We did the show for me and my buddy Heathen did the show for about 2 years, and then we brought Eli on as a regular a host, and he's now 1/3 of the show. And for 2 years, we had exactly 0 running jokes. Because I didn't want to be intimidating to the new listener. I didn't want the new listener to come in and say, okay, I can't, do I need a lexicon to figure this out?
Yeah.
It is impossible to stop Eli from doing running jokes. His entire life is a bit. So eventually we just gave up on that. So.
Well, after meeting him and Heath, both of them are absolute sweethearts. Heath is just this amazingly gregarious person. And Eli, after meeting him, he's just kind-hearted.
Well, he is that. That's not the first adjective that would come to most people's minds when describing Eli Bosnick. But yes, no, it's an accurate one.
Yeah. I love it. Eli pushes the envelope, and that's absolutely fun. It's what I try and rein Jamie
Eli,
back in
Eric
from.
just called you overweight. He said you couldn't fit in an envelope.
All right. So I just want to have a quick announcement before we hop into calls because I want to get right into it. We do have a couple lines open. If you are a religious caller, now's your time. I don't see any theists on the line, so call 512-686-0279. That's 512-686-0279. Let them know you're a religious caller, and we'll put you right up to the front of the line. Announcements. Right. Women's March is on March 19th, and Godless Bitches and a show that we're going to be premiering at some point soon, the Atheist Vanguard. They're going to be at the Women's March. They're not going to be doing anything live, but they're going to be releasing recordings. If you are in and around the area or you see things that are going on around your area, check out the Women's March. We absolutely support just community in the intersection between, helping each other. And yeah, I love it. Anyway, other announcements are going to go throughout the show, as always. About halfway through the show, we're going to be thanking our patrons. If you'd like to become a patron, consider going to patreon.com/talkheathen-to-me. That's patreon.com/talkheathen-to-me. We're going to be thanking our top 5 patrons in the middle of the episode, and I check during the show, so you have time. With that said, I think it's time to jump into calls, and okay, so Noah, we have a regular who calls in. His name's Frode. I'm trying to pronounce it correctly. And in Norway,
he's from Norway. That's not always the easiest pronunciations.
Yeah. But man, he's become a favorite of us and the people in the back and of the fans. He's shared a lot and he's been going through a lot lately. I really would like to talk to him. Frode?
Oh,
hey, man.
Too much nice about me. Thank you. First and foremost, Noah, I am your biggest fan from Norway. I love you.
I'm so stoked to know that somebody's listening in Norway. That's amazing. Thank you.
God-awful movies is one of my favorite things to listen to. When I listen to that, I can't do anything else but almost piss my pants from laughter.
Thank you so much, man.
I actually did watch Vultures of Horror just to listen to the show. And that is one of the worst experiments in my entire life, but your podcast made it all worth it. So thank you so much, Noah.
You bet. And for people who don't know, by the way, Vultures of Horror is a TV show out of, I believe, Nigeria. That is, it's Christian, but it's got that weird African Christian feel to it, where there's, it's sort of been melded with a lot of tribal mythology and everything. And it's just a really weird take on Christianity, but it's also like the worst CGI you can imagine and the worst actors you can imagine. So if you love terrible movies, I'd really recommend you check it out.
And I recommend your podcast about it. So that's why I am a patron of your podcast.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. Yeah. Anyway, that was not where I was actually going to call into because...
Yeah, but what did you want to talk about?
I had a relapse this week. I was 2 messages, and I'm going to be completely honest, away from taking my own life this week because I was so depressed. It's terrible. I got much help from Nikki that I met through Talk Heathen. So thanks again to her for helping me through one of the worst nights of my life. But yeah, I woke up and I was so angry at God because he didn't exist.
Yeah, as weird as that sound, I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. When you have had a friend for 39 years and you discover that that friend doesn't exist,
it can still feel like losing.
Yeah, no, it's still a betrayal, even though there's no one there to betray you. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was thinking to myself, okay, if God doesn't exist, I don't really have any reason to live, because then I'm nobody. I'm not a part of his plan because he doesn't exist. Okay, there is no plan. I don't need to exist anymore. And I just got that mind in my head. It's one of the worst things when you miss somebody that you loved for so many years. When it turns out that person or that thing doesn't exist, because you lose something that has been such a big part of your life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think about it like, I was never religious, so I can't entirely relate to what you're going through. But I think about it like if you were told your whole life that You know, it's like Dumbo's feather, right? If you're told your whole life, hey, this jacket is bulletproof and it's fireproof, and anytime you wear this jacket, nothing can harm you, even if that was a lie the whole time. You know, when you find out that that's a lie, even though you never had the bulletproof, you never had the fireproof, you still feel that you've lost something. And I think that's largely because you've been given a reason not to go through all of the stages of fear, et cetera, that the rest of us, those of us who were raised without that jacket, go through. You know, so then when you realize that you've been lied to or that you've been misled by religion, you know, you have to, in very short order, catch up with all the rest of the world. And you have to deal with these things that up until now in your life, you've just been able to say, well, yeah, but God is going to take care of that. There are so many things that wind up in that basket when you're religious.
Yeah.
And and again, it's like trying to trying to catch up in a race where you're 5 miles behind to start.
And it's also about like the thing that has surprised me is how much I miss having someone that's higher than me to talk to, that I can lay my problems on, that I can like talk to. What I have learned through this process is going through my journal is one of the things that I've done promptly, because when I read my journal, I see how bad I was from the first time I just called in to talk Heathen. I remember the first time we talked, Jamie. Jesus Christ, sorry for using his name in that way.
I'm pretty sure nobody here is going to be upset at you for that, man. But
I remember that call as it was yesterday, and it has been such. I'm in the mourning period, and I feel like this part of my life that doesn't exist anymore, that was such a lie. I miss that part of me. I really mourn having God on my side. I'm not saying that he's real, but I miss that he was real in my mind.
Yeah, I totally get it, man.
Well, you know, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
No, go for it.
But one of the things, and again, like I said, I'm coming to this from the position of somebody who was never really religious. You know, my parents sort of half-assed told me, yeah, there's a Jesus, there's a God, now go away. So it didn't take me long to sort of dismiss all of that. But I get specifically when you talk about the ability to talk to God, right? To talk to someone that's always going to listen to you, always going to love you, et cetera. And I know a lot of atheists who still pray. Right? They know they're praying to a non-existent God, but the act of saying those words aloud, the act of actually expressing all of that, you know, me personally, when I'm going through a rough time in my life, and this is kind of embarrassing to admit, but I will call dead people on my phone. I'll just pick up my phone and pretend that I'm talking to someone that I admire from history. And I think there's that same function, and obviously it's nowhere near as comforting psychologically when you know that it's an illusion. But hey, you know, even when you know the magician is fooling you, the magic is still good, right? Like I said, I don't know, again, because I've never been in your shoes or in a position similar to yours, I don't know how helpful that could be. But, you know, again, just because you don't believe in God doesn't mean that you can't still express those same things, that you can't still say them aloud or say them in your head, even if you know that there's no one really listening.
And there's nothing bad about it. You said bad, but I mean, if you're using the best tools that you have, you know, if this is how you understand that the world works, then what is there bad about growing and learning and becoming a better person and expecting and wanting more from the world? It's fantastic. It's fantastic. And the fact is when you're honest about it, when you're open about it, other people won't be ashamed to say, hey, you know what? I'm experiencing this too, because you're not the only one. I mean, a big reason why I thought I was broken is because everyone else in church played along when they said that they could hear God speaking to them, when they said that they experienced miracles, right? Because they didn't want to be left out, and they were able to trick themselves, or they were able to try and find meaning in the randomness of this universe. And I thought there was something wrong with me, and it wasn't until way, way later that I actually found out that it's true for all of us, and that's okay.
I just think it's the loneliness that is the killer, because now that it's been so many weeks that I've talked to people from my church, there has been nobody from my church that has brought out to ask how I was doing. Nobody from my congregation that has even knocked on my door, or even a phone call. My best friend in the church that I actually thought was my friend doesn't respond to my SMSs and calls anymore, because I'm not a part of his congregation. And that's like the loneliness and desperation you feel in losing your network,
your community,
you.
all of it. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's so... And
it's so conditional. It's so conditional, man.
Yeah.
I mean, so I actually got in touch with somebody. Her name is Danielle. Hey, Danielle. She went to the same church that I did, and we were talking about what it was like to be completely outgrouped, and to see people get gaslighted, especially women. The way that women were treated in the church that I went to is unbelievably bad. And seeing that abuse, it's bad enough when you have a partner, and it's easy, even when you have one person in your life who's telling you, no, you're just wrong. There's something wrong with you. You're broken. Let's fix you. And that can keep someone in for life. But when you have an entire community that reinforces it, if everyone feels that way, I mean, how is there a way out? I talked to somebody who was on a Ask Me Anything on Reddit, and they said that someone they loved had passed away, and they had received a text from that person who was dying, in the process of dying, and said, I don't want you to come visit me, and I don't want you to come to my funeral. And they found out that it was their family who sent that. It wasn't the person that they loved. They had taken that person's cell phone and took away from them that chance to say goodbye. That removal, that pull away, right? Holding people hostage, holding someone's memory hostage. When I was in church, we talked about agape love. And agape love was unconditional. And yet, I see a lot of strings,
Well, it's one of religion's favorite bludgeons to use, right? They control your community. They control very often your family. I know a couple that disowned their son because he's gay, and their church told them to. And I've never met their son. He moved half a country away from them. I only know them, and I see the misery that it brings them. Right? And they're the ones doing it, but they're being told by their church that this is necessary for his growth, that he needs to, that he will come back to God, and the only way to get him there is through this ostracization. So it's a matter of everyone is being made miserable by this. And again, that's a bludgeon that religion loves to use. And look, I mean, Eric's no God, but he's a great guy. So,
you have
may
not
have
heard
lost.
of the Book of Eric. I will teach you, my friend. I will teach you. It's
All
okay.
right.
We will convert you.
Sounds good. But the point being, I know that the atheist community can't replace an all-powerful, omnipotent, omniscient being, but we can try. We can be there for you. I know there are so many people who are in the same situation as you that have lost their community. And, this was obviously probably a lot harder 100 years ago or 50 years ago. But now that we can commune online, at the very least, we can mitigate that somehow, that there are these communities that are willing to embrace you. Now, I don't know, because I know, obviously Norway is not as religious as of a country as the U.S., so I don't know what you have available to you locally in terms of atheist groups or former religious groups and stuff. But at the very least, there are plenty of them online based out of the U.S. that would be happy to have you and happy to help you whenever they can.
Absolutely.
And I have found that community in Nikki and Chris and everybody else. There's been so many people online that has been such a support for me. Like, yeah, I can't even remember to thank everybody. It's been so freaking awesome with everybody. Like.
Yeah.
Chelsea, I talked to today, also one of your amazing screen callers that just helped me through also today. Like I have found some big help online, and I'm eternally grateful. But it doesn't mean that I don't miss him, even though he's fake.
Well,
it's strange, but
it's good to be able to talk about it. And I see value in this call because you're not the only one. And people need to know that they're not alone. And you're not alone. Noah, the people he's listing are moderators.
Oh, right on.
Our newsletter editors, our volunteers. And we're going on around 30,000 people who've signed up on different platforms and in different ways, who've reached out to try and get some community, and who've found people who reached back.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and that's one of the things that I like. Literally, it saved me. Nikki's ability to have time to talk to me that night makes me be able to call into the show, Talk Hidden, and actually didn't take all those pills that I have counted on my in my hands. I didn't take it because she was there for me, and I'm eternally grateful for everybody that helped me through this situation.
In the long run, brother.
You too, Eric.
Hey, in the long run, there's only so much we can do. We're not professionals.
No, I have seeked professional help.
Keep going, brother. I know it's tough, but I go every other week. You know, if your car is good enough to take to a mechanic when there's an issue, you know, you're worth taking care of you.
Yeah.
So,
I have one question before I go.
Yeah, what's up?
How can I make, and this is maybe a loose question, how can I miss God less? How can I make him be a less part of my life when he has been such a part of my life for 39 years?
Awesome. Actually, this one's way better than you think. In time, it will hold less for you. In time, as you recognize that it's really not a thing, it doesn't become comforting anymore. And replace it with something. Noah gave you some great examples. Other things are meditation, mindfulness techniques. Other things are journaling or reaching out to people you love. There are tons and tons of ways, but I'm telling you, number one, it will fade away. You know, it's like fear of hell. It's like, you know, all of these other different indoctrination pieces. Sexual indoctrination is one that takes forever. Some people go their whole lives without ever getting out of it, you know, long after they deconvert. But in time, you'll get there, and finding something to replace it really helps. I'm really glad you called in, man. And I'm really glad you're here. And we care about you, and we love you. And you take care of yourself.
I love you too. I love you all.
Love you back, man.
And Noah, please come to Norway and do a show.
And my fear is that if I ever go to Norway, I'll never leave, man.
Yeah, that's what Chris said some years ago. So yeah,
Chris is still in Norway. Chris is our newsletter editor. He's also in Norway.
Oh, right on.
Take care, buddy.
Take care of yourself, man.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, it's a pretty heavy one to start the day with, but
actually, talk heathen.
Yeah.
And by the way, I know you're a non-believer, but I'd like to introduce you.
Oh, you weren't even kidding. Wow.
No. There's a book of Eric, and there are more true things in that book, or at least less lies. Yeah, I know, right?
Yes. Yeah. This is so much
fantastic.
more impressive than the Bible here. There's so much more good stuff. It's so much more moral. I don't know if you can see. It's a blank book. That's amazing. I'll tell you, the thing for me, and I don't know, obviously it's different for everybody, but, when he's talking about how do I make God become less a part of my life, and of course, God was never a part of my life, so I'm shooting from the hip on this, but, and I've seen this work for a lot of other people, I get angry. Right? Like, it's okay to be angry at God even though he doesn't exist, and to offset all that love and all those good memories that you have of loving God and God loving you back with just being angry. You have every right to be angry about this, and you can sort of temper that emotion, don't get mad at the people who brought you into the religion. They're almost certainly victims of it as well. But it's okay to get mad at the institution. It's okay to express that anger. I've been doing it for 7 years and counting, and I'm happy to express it for you. But I think a lot of atheists feel like if I'm not, if God doesn't exist, I can't be angry at him, right? And I can't be angry at my mom for telling me about him. So who do I get angry at? It's okay to be angry at God for not existing, right? And honestly, I think that helps to sort of, like I said, to sort of balance out that love emotion that you have as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. I know it's a stereotype, but there's a reason. If you're lied to your whole life, it does come as a shock, and people do get angry, and that's okay too.
Yeah.
So before we take the next call, we do have a couple open lines. If you are a religious caller, or you're a deist, or if you believe in spiritual healing, crystals, or anything like that, now is the time. Call 512-686-0279. We have open lines. We have got people on the lines, but we have a couple open spots. Actually want to, I don't know, is it coming up in the front? You brought a Scathing Atheist mug. We have Muhammad in the front, actually, at the foreground. And I absolutely love that. I'm going to be drinking out of that cup for a while. We did get a couple donations. Richard Silva donated $50, said he was proud to donate to such a great organization. We had another donation come in. There was a woman, please help me in the comments with her name. She was trying to get out of a Muslim country, and people this week gathered around and really worked toward it. And last I saw this morning, she was flown out. And,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. I've seen the stories on it, and the name is
starts with a K.
Yep.
We'll get there. That's okay. We really appreciate the donations. If you would like to donate on the live chat, you can do that. There's a little dollar sign button in the upper right-hand corner of the live chat. Yeah. So, all right. I'm ready to move to the next call. How about you?
Sounds good.
All right. How do we pronounce that name?
Was it Maki?
Or Makai?
Makai.
Nailed
all right.
Nailed it. All right. He's winning. Eric's winning so far.
All right. Hey, man. What did you want to talk to us about today?
So today I kind of wanted to explore something I've been thinking about recently.
Okay.
And that is the idea that people, even though they think they have faith in God, they don't really have faith in God. But instead, they have faith in their preachers and their parents and their whomever is telling them that God exists and things like that. And one reason I was kind of thinking about that is because a lot of times you hear Christians say things like, "Oh, you have faith in science, you have faith in," and I think partially they kind of have a point because, for example, I'm a programmer. I don't have a lot of time. I'm also a full-time student. I'm also a parent. I don't have time to go and explore evolution and all of these different things in science that I believe in. So I'm not believing in these things because I personally went through and explored these things, but I believe in them because I believe the scientists aren't lying to me. I believe that they have good intentions.
Makai, how do you define faith?
Well, I think the way they define faith is wrong.
Okay, how do you define faith?
What they
because a lot of people a lot of people define faith differently, and so we can talk about they, but ultimately that's going to be a subsection of people who define faith in different ways. How do you define faith? Right. Because you just said it can be justified, so I'd like to talk about that.
I'm saying when I say faith, as far as my faith in scientists, I'm saying it in the colloquial having trust in them. But I think the religious version of faith, having a belief in something unseen, unheard, and untestable, I think that part, they're tricking themselves into thinking they have faith in God, but in reality, they have trust in their, or the colloquial version of faith, in their preachers, in their...
Let's try some different definitions. Let's try some different definitions, because if you're using one word to mean multiple things, it can be very, very confusing. An example of that is when I learned the difference between sex and gender, right? Once that was explained to me, I was able to have a much more nuanced conversation, because then we were able to differentiate between things and talk about things directly, right? So the best definition of faith that I've read is belief without evidence, right? It sounds like what you have is confidence, right? It sounds like because you understand the scientific method, we can say, okay, through the scientific method, through testing and through exploring, coming up with a hypothesis and coming through to the conclusion, learning about the world around us, based on evidence, we've been able to learn things about the world around us, right? When you have faith, you actually don't have that evidence. And so if that's the case, then would you say that you have faith in scientists?
But I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Maki, but I think what he's trying to say is more that, like, we have to have a certain amount of trust, and maybe I'll just use trust because faith is such a loaded term, but we have to have a certain amount of trust that these people who are telling us about this evidence are being truthful. Because again, we didn't go and check all the fossils and do all the carbon dating and everything. And I think you're right, absolutely, that you can't have faith in God, at least in the sense of the term that you're using, because God never said anything, right? God never comes to the church and says, like, well, okay, so this is how I feel about homosexuality or what have you. So yeah, absolutely, you have to have trust in the preacher versus having trust in the science, et cetera. Obviously the difference is that when it comes to the science, we truly do vet it, right? So you don't see, you don't see religion cohering on an answer. That's how you can kind of tell it's not true, right? So when heliocentrism was first proposed, right? There were a lot of scientists that didn't believe in it. They thought, oh, that's wacky as hell. We've got these epicycles. It all makes sense. The Earth is the center of the galaxy. And it wasn't just some naive belief. They had a lot of good evidence that they'd built up for this, right? But over time, because we were using a standard of evidence, all the scientists came into agreement, right? Eventually, it all coalesced on one answer. That doesn't happen with religion because there's nothing to test it against, right? So when you have faith in God, what you're having faith in is your pastor, your preacher, who may not be saying the same, or certainly is not saying the same thing as the preacher down the road. Right? Whereas when you have faith in science, there are obviously some fuzzy edges around in science. There are some things that we don't know for certain. There are some things where things are open to interpretation, and thus there are multiple theories. But by and large, science sort of like comes together and all comes to agreement. And that's the difference, right? We're having faith in something that we know is self-correcting. And again, using faith in the way that you're using it, Maki, we have faith in something that's self-correcting, as opposed to having faith in something that just continues to faction off and split off and have diametrically opposed, mutually exclusive conclusions that they draw. So I don't know how well that speaks to your question, but just in terms of clarification, I think if I failed to clarify that correctly, please let me know. But I think that's more the type or the way that he's using the term faith here.
Okay.
Correct. Yes. So it's not that. Yeah. Exactly. It's not that I think the. But first of all, I don't by any means think that they're right in having trust in their preachers. I just think that they do have trust in their preachers the same way. I mean, clearly, I don't think they're correct. That's why I don't believe in my preachers, or my bishop rather. But I think that the same faith that I have, or the same trust that I have in scientists, by and large, I'm not talking about like the people who make this their life. I'm talking about just the average churchgoer, the average believer. They don't have time to sit and explore all of these deep theoretical concepts about heaven the same way I don't have time to think about all the concepts in science. But in that same way, I think they don't actually have faith in God, even though they believe they do.
Well,
I think they actually have faith in, or they have trust in their preachers.
I don't know.
Does that make sense?
It does, but if I were to lock you in a room and tell you that if you go outside of that room, you will be killed, and that's all you've ever known, then yeah, you believed me, but I can leave the room and you would still be terrified of walking out. Right? I mean, there comes a point where you are perpetuating things, you know, and one of the reasons I know why I do this, and we've talked about this before, is exposing people. Sometimes it's just seeing the other side. It's giving them the chance to see what critical thought looks like, that they can give it a shot, you know? The difference is, I think, building on what you said, Noah, is, what was the Ricky Gervais quote? You can get rid of science and you can get rid of religion. And what, in 100 years, 200 years, 1,000 years, science will be back exactly the same or better.
Right.
And religion will be completely different.
Well, of course, the problem with that is that the religious people would disagree with the precept and say, no, God would come back and he'd send another Jesus or whatever, and the whole thing would regrow. You are correct, obviously, but it's pretty easy because it's such a hypothetical. Yeah. But yeah, just another thing that was occurring to me, Maki, about your point, that the difference between having faith in a preacher and having faith in God, right, is that, again, these preachers are saying things that are diametrically opposed, right? A preacher one says something that is, you know, the preacher one says that God loves everybody regardless of their sexual orientation, right? Preacher two is Steven Anderson out in Arizona screaming and yelling about God, how God hates gay people and everything. So you can't, again, because you have multiple different people interpreting God's word in multiple different ways, you can't really say that you have faith in God. You can only have faith in one person's interpretation of that God.
Yeah.
Correct. Yes. I think you're right about that.
All right. That's I mean, that's something to stew over. I just I don't know, having confidence does not necessarily, you know, it is not all created equal.
Yeah, right. And, well, no, I don't think
yeah, and that's just kind of what strikes me right away with that, because Maki, you may not be saying that, but almost every time I hear something like that, it is being, you know, they try and
you have faith
things
in the same way that we do, right?
But you know what's really funny underlying that is it usually comes after when you say faith is bad, and they say, well, you have just as much faith in us. Isn't that just kind of a, you know, taking, oh, well, I mean, okay, if faith is bad, then you're just as bad as us. Like,
yeah, too quote, yeah.
Yeah, so... Anyway,
no, I think you're right. I think the main thing is, I think they are right in that we have faith the same way they do. I think they're just wrong about what their faith is. I think they think their faith is one thing, but it's actually something else.
I would get rid of that word. That is an incredibly confusing word, Maki.
Well, so I think
they have faith in I think they think they have faith in God, but in reality, they have trust in their preachers.
Yeah, okay,
they don't actually have faith in God.
Yeah,
maybe.
I think that's right, but I would push back against the idea that what we have is basically the same as what they have, right? So I don't have confidence in, you know, in science, just in general, the same way that a religious person has confidence in their pastor, right? And I know this because as a bit of a leader in the secular movement, I know that people who turn to me for answers won't hesitate to call me out when I get something wrong.
Yep.
Right? Like the people in the atheist community will immediately stand up and say, no, you're wrong about that, and here's why. You don't see that in the religious community, right? People in the scientific community are the same way.
You should see the live chat jump on me when I say something incorrect. I mean, almost immediately.
Right.
I actually said something poorly, just my grammar was off, and I was corrected already.
We're also pedants in the atheist community.
Yes, we are, but it's appreciated. It's never something that I'd be bitter or angry about, because it
helps you get better.
I take it as people wanting me to be the best version of myself that I can be, and they're coaching me, even if it's rough. But Maki, thank you for calling in. I think if you didn't have anything else, we're going to move on to the next caller.
All right. I'll think about this some more. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for giving us the food for thought, though. That's a really interesting point.
Yeah. We actually have somebody else who called in who has a different definition of faith. Mark, you're live with Eric and Noah.
Hey, Eric and Noah. How are you guys doing?
Hey. I'm sitting with no illusions in front of a live studio audience on an amazing day in Austin, Texas. I'm pretty thrilled, man. How about yourself?
That sounds great. Just sitting here in a snowy day in a snowed-in house with my kids. They were just playing outside. So I was listening to your guys' show. Long-time listener, first-time caller. Hey, how about that?
Hey, cheers.
Okay.
There are other shows that actually have something that they use instead of saying long-time listener, first-time caller. I think we got to figure one out. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, I did call into one of your other shows you have there in Austin. I called into Parenting Beyond Belief.
Oh, hey.
A few weeks back. It's a great show. I think they're going to be helping a lot of people.
Yeah. But what would you want to call in about today?
All right. So I've actually done a little bit of research, into the word usage and language of faith. And just to refresh my memory, what was that definition you used about 5-10 minutes ago that you were just talking to the previous caller about?
Belief without evidence.
Okay. For me, it would be more of a belief regardless of evidence. Mm-hmm. Because you may have a faith-based position in something, and there could possibly be evidence to support it, but it doesn't really matter. You're going to believe it anyway.
I don't know. In light of evidence and the ability to interpret that evidence, I actually kind of side with Matt Dillahunty's approach that we don't choose the things we believe. We believe the things we do because that is what we've come to with the tools that we have, right, at our disposal. We use the best tools we have to decipher the world around us. And if they're flawed tools, then you may get to a flawed conclusion. But if you're saying, that you would believe in light of having learned that it's false, I think you'd be tricking yourself, but I don't think you'd actually believe.
Well, I think I lean towards that, and I actually think that's a good correction. Not to be too combative with you here. We can go to fisticuffs if we have to.
Oh, dude, you know what? Atheist Experience. I'm gonna call them out. I have not seen that. You want to disagree? You can disagree. What's up?
All right.
Let's go.
No, I think I agree with Mark, and it might seem like a small correction here to say, because when you say faith without evidence. If you use that term to a person with faith, to a religious person, they'll be able to dismiss this by saying, no, I have evidence. Look at all my evidence. Their evidence will be the Bible, and their evidence will be their cousin who was really on the down and outs and was on meth and got off of it because of Jesus, right? And then and you can say, well, here's all this evidence to go against it. But I think that's right, and I honestly think that belief. Despite the evidence, as Mark phrased it, is an agreement or is a definition that the religious people would largely agree with, right? Like that would be a harder one to attack than to say belief without evidence. But you can say, I think most religious people would agree that if you say to them, okay, if I provided you evidence X, Y, and Z against your religion, would you stop believing in God? They'll usually say no. If they're going to be honest.
Yeah, enough people.
Right.
You know what? That's actually a really good point.
Yeah, I like that a lot, Mark.
Okay, and you know what? Also, that would include bad evidence. You could talk about what good and bad evidence is.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Or it could also mean with no evidence at all. Either way.
Yeah, Mark.
Or against.
Mark, no, I'm on board. I think y'all convinced me. I'm gonna continue to stew on it a bit, but that sounds pretty damn good. Okay. Cheers.
And hey, sorry about your cults
what's
there.
The other? No, yeah, I know. Well, I'm proud of them anyway. They did a good job, even though.
Hey, I'm a Jaguars fan. I can't talk.
But also something the other caller was talking about between trust and faith. I actually did a little essay on this, the difference between trust and faith. This is kind of where my research came in and everything like that. I learned that faith, when somebody says, I have faith in X, Y, and Z, they are more or less making a claim of knowledge. I have faith in God. They are claiming that, I have faith that God exists.
So how would you make that distinct and separate from confidence or a confidence level?
Right. Well, the difference between trust and faith has to come from what is this knowledge based on? So, I'll shorten this down a little bit, but through the course of my research, I found out that trust is more commonly associated with the learning, the empirical knowledge that we have about any kind of subject, where faith is involved more with the emotional appeals and the feelings that we have about it. So when it comes to the difference between trust and faith, faith is more of an emotional appeal to a claim of knowledge, while trust is more of an intellectual claim towards knowledge.
That makes a lot of sense. I think religious people get a lot of mileage out of the fact that there are multiple different definitions of the word faith that we use in everyday language, right? Like, so when I say I have faith in my wife, right, that's a very different claim than saying I have faith in God. If I walked in to my bedroom tomorrow and my wife is stooping the pool guy, I no longer have faith in my wife, right? But like you're saying, if you're defining faith as belief in spite of evidence, then obviously we're talking about a completely different thing there.
Well, no, not in spite. Regardless.
Right, yeah.
So there could be evidence supporting you. There could be evidence against you. There might not be any evidence at all, either way. But you still have that emotional, because, well, let's face the facts, human beings are emotional creatures. 95% of the decisions we make every day are based on how we feel about it, not any kind of critical thinking.
Yeah.
And so in light of those facts, that I'm an atheist and I have no problem saying that I have faith in things. The difference is I have faith in the things that are based in reality. I don't have any problem saying I have faith in my wife. I don't have any problem saying I have faith in humanity. I don't have any problem saying I have faith my brakes will work next time I stop at a stoplight.
See, I still think that, while your definition, all of those definitions, I want to go over them and think about them, because my initial reaction is, does that work all of the time? In what situations does that work? And in those definitions that you gave, I think that if you agreed with somebody that you were talking to on those definitions to better understand the conversation that you were having, fantastic. But I would still have a problem with you saying that you have faith generally if they don't know your definitions, and I don't want to muddy the water any more than I have to,
I understand that.
It is quite the loaded term. It's best avoided when possible. But again, even by your definition, when you say if faith is belief regardless of evidence, then you don't have faith that your brakes are going to work the next time, right? Because all it would take is your brakes not working next time, and that faith is crushed, right? So all you need is one piece of evidence, and you're willing to overthrow that. So again, I think, just like many words, faith has multiple meanings, multiple usages and stuff, and I think religious people try to muddy those waters intentionally by conflating those various usages. So again, when I say I have faith in my wife, what I'm saying is based on prior behavior, I trust that this is, that she's going to continue to be faithful to me. And again, like I said, it's just there in the dictionary, there's a parenthesis 1 and there's a parenthesis 2 there. And whenever we start melding those two together, it's an intentional confusion.
But I appreciate the conversation. Thank you for calling in. I think that was very well timed on the heels of the last call.
Yeah, right.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you very much for taking my call. You guys have a great night.
You too. Thank you.
Enjoy all that lovely Indiana weather.
All right. So we're going to be going down our calls, but if you want to see a theist caller, if you're a religious caller, call in. We're taking another atheist, and we want to talk to you. But if you don't call in, or what kills me, Noah, is that I get emails pretty regularly that say you only pick religious callers
right.
who can't hold their own. Mm-hmm. No, we pick the ones who call in.
Right. Well, it's so funny when we did this, the God Awful Movies record that we did just yesterday. It features these four Christian apologists sitting around a table, like very much like this one, and saying, "What I'd like to hear the atheist's answer is X, Y, and Z." And it's like, yeah, we have call-in shows, guys. Yeah. We would love to answer X, Y, and Z for you.
We're here.
Yeah.
All right, but let's move on to Gabe. Gabe, you're live with Eric and Noah.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Hey, doing all right. Yeah, doing all right. How about you, Noah?
I'm doing all right.
Yeah.
All right. I'm, I'm not a Colts fan, so that helps.
Getting in the. Oh man, you're just stirring shit up.
Again, when you're a fan of like the worst team in the NFL, you got to make fun of everybody. You gotta get it while you can.
Gabe, what do you want to talk about today?
Well, a couple weeks ago at work, I overheard a conversation. So two of my coworkers, one guy is, I don't know, mid to late 30s, and the other one was like a 16 or 17-year-old girl. She seems pretty impressionable. Mm-hmm. He was telling her about an astrology app that he had on his phone, and she asked him how reliable is it? And he goes, "Oh, it's pretty reliable as long as they do it correctly." And that really irked me. I didn't want to butt in because I wasn't in their conversation really. Mm-hmm. I wanted to know what was the way to go about dispelling astrology.
Oh boy!
Wow!
All right, there are a couple ways. So the ones that I've seen in the past are when people cut out the what the different predictions are and then mix them up.
Yeah.
Say, can you find the one that correlates to you?
Which one is the Pisces? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and which one is, because that would have to be specific to you. Another is, having somebody read a bunch. You could, pull a bunch of different predictions and say, no, this is all Capricorn. You're a Capricorn, right? Do these all relate to you? Well, absolutely, I'm a Capricorn. This all totally works. And you go, oh, well, actually, that's the entire zodiac.
Yeah.
So that helps. Fuck it. She doesn't listen to this show. I had a significant other who believed in astrology at one time. And, it's funny. We were on a long road trip, and she was talking about something with a star sign, and I just kind of quietly looked over and said, that's all bullshit, right? And she kind of got quiet, and she looked at me, and she goes, well, no, it's not. I said,
oh, no.
Oh yeah, no, it got bad, dude. It got real bad because if you walk people through it, can you separate people into 12 distinct groups? Does being born under a star sign mean that everyone born in the month of July is going to have X characteristics, right? How come we don't use that when it comes to hiring? How come that doesn't? No, go ahead. You got something.
Well, first of all, don't say that too quick. Some people do.
Fair enough.
But now, playing devil's advocate from the astrologer's perspective, they'll say, yes, sun sign astrology by itself is not enough. You also have to have moon, your moon sign and your Venus sign.
You were into woo, that's right.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So interestingly enough, though, the way that I figured out astrology was bullshit was exactly what you were saying, but by accident. Right, so I'm looking at this book, and my brother has given me a little shit, saying, I don't think this is very accurate. And I open up the book to his, and the book that I was looking at was a book that combined the Chinese zodiac and the Western zodiac, so you'd be like, the Pisces dragon or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I read him out the description of himself, right? Of the whatever he is, the tiger something or whatever. And I read the description and I says, that sounds just like you to me. And he's like, yeah, it does. And then I looked and I realized I was on the wrong page.
Oh no.
I was like 2 pages ahead, and then I flipped over and I'm like, actually, no, this one is you. And I read it and he's like, yeah, that sounds like me too. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute, I see what's going on here. But I think, Gabe, I think there are two parts in your question here. One is, obviously, how do you debunk astrology? But the other is, how do you handle it when you're at work and it's not really appropriate for you to jump in and say, no, that's bullshit, right? Like, is that what you're asking, or are you asking more for, like, advice specifically on how to debunk astrology as a science?
Kind of both, kind of the facts, and then the most, I guess, genteel way to.
See, I'm not good at genteel. My methodology is to go bullshit. And
that works sometimes.
Sometimes, but it doesn't make you any friend.
Well, actually, what's funny is in the example of my significant other, all she needed to do is hear somebody say it. Mm-hmm. Because so many people are so afraid to bring it up and talk about it and go, oh, that's actually not a thing, because they don't want to hurt somebody else's feelings. And that's why it's so important to say, hey, respect people. People are deserving of respect, but ideas are not. Right. Someone can have vile ideas. One that I think of is the Westboro Baptist Church, and yet we have Megan Phelps Roper, right? We have Nathan Phelps, right? Who came out of that, who believed that, and then changed, and so it's, man, first off, if you feel comfortable enough, you can say, hey, I actually don't think that's a thing, because what you might do is you might inspire them to want to prove it to you. Be a student. That could help.
Well, and there's two different things that you're wanting to tackle there, right? First is the older guy who's telling her about the app, and the other is the impressionable 16, 17-year-old girl. And I think those two obviously take completely different approaches, right? So the impressionable person who's first hearing about this, maybe all you need to do is take her aside later and say, hey, I heard you guys talking about astrology. Let me recommend this website to you. Let me recommend the Rational Wiki, or find something good online, science-based medicine or something that breaks down astrology and shows it to you. And that may be all she needs, right? When it comes to dealing with the person who's selling the woo, obviously you've got to go to a deeper level with that. And I agree. I think the best way to do that is to just really engage in a conversation. Ask them, how do you know this is true? How do you test it? Because even just from the brief description that you were giving, the girl asks, well, is it accurate? And he says, when they do it right. Right? So, well, what about this when it was wrong? Well, they did it wrong, right? So it becomes a no true Scotsman fallacy, and it might be, yeah, exactly, and it might be that just by, doing the dialectic, right, and asking him to explain, how do you know this? How did you test this? How did you determine this? That might do the trick, or like Eric was saying, maybe it'll, fire him up to say, oh, you know what, I'm going to go in and I'm going to research and I'm going to come back tomorrow and I'm going to whip his ass in a debate and showing him exactly why astrology is true. And, hey, that's how a lot of religious people became atheists, right? By going in there and watching the debates and stuff and saying, I'm going to learn how to defend my religion just like William Lane Craig, and they're like, wow, he gets his ass kicked by almost everyone. Oh no. So it may even be something as simple as that.
I actually saw a really great video clip. It was a long time ago, back when Stephen Fry and Hugh Laurie had their show, a bit of Fry and Laurie. They went in and there was somebody who said that they could read star signs, and so they gave Hugh Laurie's birth date to this astrologer, and they didn't tell him who it was. And this astrologer listed out this person that is not Hugh Laurie at all. Right. And he stood up and said, well, actually, that's me. And Stephen Fry stood up and said, I'm best friends with him. That just does not match.
Yeah.
But Gabe, I hope that helps. And let us know how it works. Let us know how it goes.
Yeah, good luck, man. Fight the good fight.
Definitely.
Thanks.
Take care, brother.
Good talking to you guys. Bye.
Look at that. We've got some religious callers on the line. I kind of want to get to Dean because he has a definition of faith from a religious viewpoint. Dean, thank you for calling in.
Hey, no problem. What's going on?
Hey.
Real quick. I think earlier in the show I was a little bit behind, and then I caught up. I was watching on YouTube. You said that faith was a belief in something that you couldn't know or didn't know. Is that correct?
I said that it was a belief in something that did not have evidence.
Yeah, I think.
Okay, gotcha.
And just to clarify, you may have come in when we were talking to Mark earlier, and the definition he was using, the one that I adhere to, well, as of today at least, is a belief that's held regardless of the evidence.
And so we're just trying.
Of the evidence. Okay.
Yeah, we're just trying
Gotcha.
to have terminology that we can talk to each other about and be able to come up with, distinctions and better be able to dive into it. So what do you have?
Yeah. So I think, and I guess speaking from the worldview of a Christian, I wouldn't necessarily ascribe to faith being a belief in something that you didn't know or a belief that you held regardless of the evidence. Because I think, like, if you're going to, talk to a Christian about the definition of faith, I think the source material to find that definition would be what you would have to reference. And so I guess, when you look at the Bible, specifically the New Testament, when we look at the definition of faith, it's a term of
the evidence of things of hope for, and the what is it?
There's actually there's actually a word there that's used. It's
evidence of things not
called,
seen. There we go. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's a word called pistis, and what it means is a confident. It's a term of fidelity, and it means a confident trust in a reliable source, or maybe a better way to phrase it would be a willing commitment to a known truth or an informed intellect. And I think the example of that is best seen in John 10, where
actually, I would love to use that definition that you're using, Dean. So why do you think that the Bible is a true source of information?
Or to use your term, a reliable source.
Yeah, no,
or a reliable.
I got you there, but let's focus on the definition of faith first, because before we can move into why I think the Bible's reliable.
Sorry, I'm gonna let you finish. I'm not trying to cut you off from your point, but I feel like most religious people would disagree with that definition. I feel like the Bible specifically disagrees with that definition, as in the quote that Eric's referring to.
Substance of things hoped for, evidence of things not seen.
Yeah, right. So what you're describing, I would define as just knowledge.
Well, I mean, I can't help that that the definition of the Greek word faith matches your definition of knowledge.
Well, okay, so we're not talking about Greek because we're not speaking Greek, right? We're talking about the English common usage of the word faith.
I've seen a lot of people, especially atheists, who have dove into epistemology to try and make an absolutely senseless, useless point. So if you want to get into etymology, that's great. But if you want to say you can't use this word, or, we just need to agree on it. These are ideas that we're using, concepts that we're describing to be able to move forward. And we're willing to use your definition to talk about this, right?
No, yeah. And my point is that in order for either the Christian or the atheist to dialogue together, as you said, they have to agree on the term, but my point is, if the word that's used for faith and the Bible is different from whether or not that is different from what the atheist thinks, or even from well-meaning Christians, that's not the point. The point is
you're talking past each other, yeah.
Yeah, the point is not necessarily what common Christians or how common Christians might use it. The point is, all right, what's the definition of the term that is most used in the New Testament text with regards to faith? And that word...
No.
And I'm not trying
Dean,
to...
I'm actually not going to accept that. I'm not going to accept that. And I'll tell you why.
So it seems to me that you're just arguing that the Bible is mistranslated.
Yeah. And Dean, the reason I'm not going to accept that is because you are reaching into the thing you're trying to prove is true to begin the conversation. Give me a definition.
I'm not reasoning in a circle. That's not reasoning in a circle.
Okay, I'm trying to prevent you from reasoning in a circle. So let's start outside of the Bible and agree on that definition.
But here's, see, and this is what's frustrating because I'm simply saying, all right, here's the definition that is, the word faith is one of the highest used words in the New Testament. And before we can even talk about how Christians view faith or how atheists view faith, we have to get to the definition of the term. And if the term isn't, my point is, if the term isn't a trust regardless of evidence, or if the term doesn't mean believing something without evidence, then it's a misapplication of the definition or the term that you're trying to apply to Christians or atheists.
So to be clear here, we're not having a discussion on what the word faith means within the context of the Bible. We're having a discussion on what the word faith means in common usage when we're talking with Christians. So you can go back and say, well, if you look at the Greek definition of this word, maybe a more appropriate word would be X. Well, then let's use word X to discuss this, right? The fact that the Bible may be mistranslated or may be imperfectly translated really doesn't factor into the conversation that we're having here, right? I think the average Christian would not agree with you, because the definition that you're using is the same as science would use for truth, right, or for knowledge. Having a belief in a trust in a reliable source that has been shown to be reliable,
justified true belief.
Yeah, exactly. That is worlds apart from the way that the term faith is generally used in this argument, not just by atheists, but by Christians as well. So I think you're kind of trying to swoop in and create a whole new definition that just serves to make the discussion less productive and make the term less useful.
And we'll still meet you there to talk about it,
dude. The term less productive. I'm trying to make the term more productive.
Then can I ask you a question? Do you think that term ideas like faith, confidence, belief, and those things, trust, do you think those started in the Bible, or do you think those existed before the Bible?
No, I mean, I certainly think that those things, as far as faith, trust, confidence, all that stuff, I'm sure people had that, before the Bible was written. Cool. My point is this, is that it doesn't necessarily, and I'll actually cede a point to the atheist community here, is that I personally believe that the reason that we have this definition in the church culture of believing something without evidence is because there is not a lot or enough education regarding the term faith as it's used in Scripture.
Well, definitely not enough critical analysis.
Right, but we're not pulling quotes from the Bible, right? We're talking about when a Christian says, I have faith in God. Now, I'd like to read for you the definition and I just Googled define faith. Now, one is complete trust or confidence in someone or something. This is, the usage you would say when you say, I have faith in my wife, I have faith in my brakes, as we were discussing earlier. The other one is strong belief in the doctrines of a religion based on spiritual apprehension rather than proof. Now, that is the common usage of the term that we're discussing. Again, if you say that, the biblical term that the word faith is translated from in the original Greek or the original Hebrew, that's just a mistranslation. That has nothing to do with the actual day-to-day usage of the term faith in English.
I guess my question would be, so So the common term that we're using between Christians and atheists, the common term then supersedes the texts that Christians base their belief on.
No.
No. Because we're not quoting the Bible,
and we're
right.
also,
And the Christians that we're talking to aren't quoting from the Bible and reading the word faith in this biblical quote, right? Where they're talking about having faith by the common English definition. So I feel like the solution for what you're saying is that we set aside the word faith and then we just talk about, knowledge would be a better word for the definition that you gave. And so we can talk about knowledge separate and apart from talking about faith. But that doesn't inform us in this discussion of faith.
But
okay,
you said
so
that,
I guess.
But you said that you had I know we're jumping back and forth and right on you. I kind of wanted to lead the conversation back to you saying that you had a knowledge that the Bible is true. And then when I asked you about it, you started to go to a Bible verse, right? How can I look at the Bible and verify that it's a true thing to begin with before I start reaching to it to justify itself?
So real quick, I wasn't speaking to truth. I was speaking to the definition of faith. I was saying, hey, if you want the definition of faith from a Christian perspective.
Are you the only Christian?
No, wait. No, okay, so you are not giving us the definition of the word faith from a Christian perspective. You're giving us the definition of a Greek word from a Christian perspective. The definition of faith is still the same.
Well,
right?
and
faith is an English word that is not in any way informed by this Greek word that you're talking about. Again, you're talking about a mistranslation in the Bible at best.
Dean,
I guess my question would be,
specifically,
why
again,
would you think
you're not all Christians?
Why would you think?
Right? You're not all Christians.
What?
If you say, I want to give this to you from a Christian perspective, if I could talk to every Christian and they could agree, fantastic. If not, I want to hear Dean's perspective. Dean, the Christian's perspective. That's fantastic. I'll take that.
Okay, so I don't know how else better to explain it, but even I guess my initial question, I don't know how else better to explain it other than if I, as a Christian, I'm just speaking from the Christian
from your
worldview,
perspective,
speaking to Christians for Christians, that if I want to properly use the term faith, then I have to look into what the text says.
You want to apply hermeneutics. Is that correct?
Understand that word. Absolutely.
Okay.
That's the term that I want to use.
Right.
And
so you do recognize that I can apply hermeneutics and come up with a completely different definition, right? We can do that together.
You could.
I could
look at the term.
Which is why I don't care, Dean. I just want to agree on the term so we can have the conversation.
I'm trying to help us agree on the term.
Okay.
But I can't.
Well,
my point is, Eric.
Go ahead.
My point is, Eric, that you could look into John or Romans chapter 1, where it talks about the righteous live by faith.
Right.
And I can look in that and say the righteous live by faith. And certainly you could come away from that term and look at that term, and you could say, all right, that means to believe in something without evidence. But you would be incorrect in doing that because the term itself, it has a definition to it.
Right, okay.
And so, yes, we can both have different views of that term, but you can't look at the definition of that term.
Well, I read the dictionary definition of the word faith here, and the idea, by the way the dictionary definitions are written is in such a way that you should be able to substitute the definition from the word, and it still makes sense. Now, to clarify, because you said you came a little late, we were not quoting the Bible and then plucking the word faith out and saying, in this biblical quote, the word faith should be interpreted as X. We're talking about common usage of the word faith when you're discussing things with Christians, right? We were not trying to parse a biblical phrase in so doing.
Right.
So you may be you may be correct that when we read the Bible and the word faith comes up, I know that there are a few different words that are translated where the word faith is substituted. So Yes, absolutely. If we're doing textual criticism of the Bible, then absolutely we need to go to the Greek definitions. We need to go to all of these various things. But when we're talking about what it means when the average Christian says to have faith in something, right? They're not going to the Greek of the original in Romans, et cetera, and all of this. They're using the English definition of the word faith.
Okay. And my point is, and I ceded this point to you earlier, and my point is, that there's a big possibility that the reason that is because there hasn't been a proper understanding and education within the Christian community about the definition and usage of that word. That's all I'm saying. Is that, and this is my basic point, and then I'll get off, and you guys can go to another caller. My point is that as atheists talk to Christians, and I hear it all the time. It's in Peter Boghossian's book. You know, when we talk about faith, and we're saying that having faith is illogical or it's not rational. If you're going to knock down the term of having faith, then you have to knock it down on the basis of what the definition is.
Yes, the English definition, the definition of the English word, which is what I read to you.
Yeah, Dean, we're going in a circle.
But
stop. Hold on. I'm pausing this. Hold on.
English definition.
Dean, just have the conversation. At the very beginning of this, I said I'd agree with your definition if we could have the conversation. And all this has been is trying to score a point where there needs none to be scored. Let's move on to the conversation. Cool. Let's move on to the conversation then. Can we do that?
Okay.
Right? You talked about Hebrews. And I honestly, I
was actually in John.
John and Romans.
John and Romans. There we go. Thank you.
Okay.
Right? Can I pick a verse to start? Let's go with Psalm 137:9.
John, and then I'll let you go to your next verse. How about that?
Okay, so let's.
Well,
let's
again,
see
I
what your
don't see
point
how
is.
this is relevant to the conversation that we were having. Again, we're not arguing in Greek.
Okay,
but we're meeting his definition unless he's still trying to make the same point. What would you like to say? Right. The question originally was, how do you believe that the Bible is true? Why do you accept that the Bible has truth or is a good reference point for truth?
The original point was, and still is that, and you might disagree with that, and we can just agree to disagree and move on. The original point is that the issue of faith and knocking down the term faith, or that faith is irrational, has nothing to do with how people commonly use it. If you're going to knock down that term, you have to knock it down on the basis of how.
No, you're just incorrect on how logic works, man. This is, I've already refuted this point, and you've just kind of said it again and again. That is not how. No. That is not how a debate works. That is not how a discussion works.
Hermeneutics and principles. That's all that is.
You and I just agree that I can use hermeneutics to come out with a completely different result, which is why hermeneutics is not used in that way anywhere else except for in the Bible.
I'm just going to go ahead.
Dean,
you gave me to disagree.
Sure, you gave me a definition, and I said let's use it. You said that definition was. Go ahead.
Okay, the definition that is used in as far as the word faith, it's a term of fidelity. It's a confident belief in a reliable source.
Okay, do you believe?
Or it is a willing commitment to truth. It is a commitment to an informed intellect. And the example that I was trying to pull out.
So you're going to pull an example out of the Bible, right? And so according to that definition, you're inferring that the Bible is an informed intellect, is truth. And what's the first one?
Well, I've kind of given up on keeping track of this.
No worries, Dean. So you're already throwing in that the Bible is true, right? According to your piece on faith, you're saying you have faith in the Bible, and you're going to show us why you have faith in the Bible. So please,
Well, I think honestly, Dean's entire point was this definitional
that was
hocus
it?
pocus that he's
No, it is. That is my point. My point is
so your entire point is that when we discuss the word faith, we're not allowed to use the English definition. We have to use the definition of a Greek word that is occasionally translated to faith in the Bible. That's nonsense, bro.
But actually, even more so, because we can't do it without it. Because if I come up with, use the same tools that he's using,
you can't. You're not allowed to do that. But he is.
If I come up with something different, that means that I probably did it wrong. I got to ask him. Right.
Yeah, that's just a nonsensical.
It's not about, guys. It's not about asking me. It's
cool.
It's about
ask me what my definition of faith is.
Look, okay, so here's the thing. Here's the bottom line here, Dean. If you put your definition on the left side and you ask somebody, okay, Dean, it's the definition that you're using. God damn it, it's your definition for the purposes of this call. If we put your definition on the right side of the page and we ask somebody what word does this define, no one who speaks English would come up with the word faith.
Yeah. Yelling is not going to solve the issue that you have here.
No, it is going to solve the issue that I have here, because the issue that I have here is that you're not fucking listening to me.
I am listening to you. I'm
my
simply
goodness.
With you. It's not my problem.
Seeing it live.
because you don't know what the definition is.
I don't. I just read you the goddamn definition out of a fucking dictionary, Dean. Come on, man.
So you say it's not my definition. I gave you a definition. You disagreed with it. Do you understand that you have said two things? Like, what does that even mean? We're just trying to meet you very, very simply, man. But maybe listen back.
I'm meet you guys too. I'm
listen back and give a call back. Maybe.
I will.
Awesome.
I
appreciate it.
And if there's a time where either one of you guys want to just meet and talk on like a Skype call or something like that, I'd be more than happy to do that too. Maybe
I've had so much fun talking to you, Dean. I'd love to do that sometime.
Honestly, Dean, if you
I got to be honest with you, Dean. You haven't really shown yourself to be like intellectually honest in your discussion here. But and that's why I wouldn't want to carry on the conversation.
I would because I want to give you those tools. And I think that if we sat down over a beer, I think I'm going to be in North Carolina this year for a convention. Well, come on down.
Eric,
I'll announce it.
When are you going to be in North Carolina?
Is it ReasonCon in Hickory?
I don't think they're doing ReasonCon this year.
Oh, well, fuck me.
Yeah, it's a great one, too. That's
well, I will let you know. I'll announce it. But Dean, take care. Listen back to this conversation, right? What I saw you holding on to something, and instead of interacting with us, you were waiting to bring it back to the thing that you'd already decided. And that's not how an open dialogue works. Because if you were listening earlier, I changed my view on something. That's something fantastic. Because you should be open to learning new things, learning more things, and being better able to navigate the world that you're in. But you take care, and we'll talk at you later.
Hey, no problem. Later, guys.
All right, peace.
Take care, Dean. And for what it's worth, I really do appreciate Dean calling. I mean, I appreciate him trying to give that perspective. But as is so often the case, he's not interested in the response to it.
No, of course not.
So he throws out the point, and he wants us to just go, that's a great point. He doesn't want to engage with that point. When I show him, like, no, that actually is not a sensible point, he's not willing to re-examine the point that he's making or understand why I'm saying it doesn't add up, etc. But rather, he just wants to sort of hammer that point over and over again, regardless of the rebuttals, and that there's no point to that.
No, well, not when you're sitting one-on-one with somebody, but right now, we have over 1,000 people watching this right now, Noah.
Yeah, so for you guys, there was a point to it.
With over 1,000 people watching, that point was clear.
I sure hope so.
And that's fantastic. So, right, I know. When you get to do it on a show, right, it holds more because people can have that conversation without being in that conversation. They can watch it played out, and there are different ways that you can approach it. And
and I'm sorry if the anger was a little much here. My wife was about to rip
I brought
all
the
her hair
scathing
out,
atheist on to talk heathen. And are you kidding me? No, I love it. I'm sitting there.
All right.
I'm sitting there. Watch. No illusions in his element, in the wild.
My poor wife's out here just going like this, and I'm like, oh, I love that hair. Wait, I got to shut Dean up.
Okay, so I do want to thank our top 5 patrons, and yes, we have a whole lot more shows, so stay tuned, and we have more theists on the line, so fuck yeah. First, I want to thank Neil. Neil's our top patron. I want to thank Matt Meyer, Nando Gonzalez, Joe Roll, and Alex Watts, our top 5 patrons. If you would like to become a patron, please consider going to patreon.com/talkheathen-to-me. It's your donations that keep us going, and it's all low donations, except one, which is fantastic. Love you, Neil. But other than that, I mean, it is small donations. Every little bit helps, and it helps keep this building open. Talk Heathen is part of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit, and we use that money to do as much good work as we can. We use this platform to try and inspire as many conversations and to empower as many other individuals as we can. And so we're going to continue to do that. And our patrons help make that happen. If you cannot donate, that's cool. We still really love that you're here. Smash that like button and subscribe. I see 265 upvotes out of 1,036 people watching. Hit the like button, subscribe. It really helps. The more people that are subscribed, the more YouTube is going to want to put us up front and in where other people can find us. So please consider doing that. My goodness. All right.
I'm so glad that came right afterwards. I can take some deep breaths while you were doing all of that. That's
just kind of zone a little bit. So here's the deal. We've got some freaking awesome callers on the line. We want to get through them, but I'm missing some Jamie in my life. But before we do that, I actually want to. Oh, we did have some amazing donors, by the way. Jamie Lee Hamill in OKC donated $99.99 during that conversation.
Nice.
Right? Thank you.
In OKC, oh my God, I bet Jamie deals with that all the time.
I love it. And Chris Schmidt, another $5. And Dizzy9, another $5, says Noah Lugeons is awesome.
Well, thank you.
Right? I think so too. So here's the deal, right? I know you play the straight man on The Scathing Atheist and your other shows. Mm-hmm. Jamie's squirrely.
Okay.
Okay? So he's going to come in.
Oh, no.
But somebody's got to keep the pace. I'm trusting you.
You're tagging out.
I'm tagging out.
Oh,
you're going to be. I know. Don't let me down, brother. Now, at the end, they're going to do the closing, right? Mm-hmm. Jamie's going to fuck with you. Don't follow it. So, okay. Did you ever watch the old episodes of The Atheist Experience when they said, we don't hate you, we just think you're wrong?
Yeah. Mm.
Right. So when you do it with Jamie, what you're going to start off with is, because we add in, if you don't believe this is your community, you're welcome here. And if you do believe we don't hate you, we just think you're wrong. And you point at the camera and hold them to it, okay? I believe in you.
Okay.
All right?
All right. I memorized those 23 words. There's no teleprompter here, man.
Do your best. I know, right? We run free, but we've got some awesome callers, and I want Jamie to come in. Noah.
Hey, it's been a pleasure, man.
It's been awesome.
Thanks.
I need ears.
All right. I guess talks amongst yourselves here. He's going to take him just a second.
Noah is a skilled individual at presenting. Is this a right ear? Yes. And this is smooth as silk. Pay no attention to the man right in front of the curtain. Yeah. All right. Oh, you left me a theist. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'll admit I've missed parts of the show, but what I've seen I've liked. You're doing a good job.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for gracing our show with that previous destruction of tomfoolery that occurred. There it is. All right, you ready for the next one?
Oh, yeah.
Are you sufficiently calm that you can get angry again?
I think so.
All right.
I think so. Hold on, let's check. Yeah,
yep.
Good.
All right. Good. Don't get a heart attack. You're on the Atheist Experience later today. My dad will kill me if you don't get there alive. All right. And we're going to take, is it Olu?
Oh, yes, Olu.
All right, Olu, you're on Talk Heathen with Jamie and Noah. What did you want to talk about today?
Hi, Jamie. Noah. Finally awesome to talk to you guys. Yeah, I finally said I was going to call 2019, so that's off my bucket list. So you guys are doing a great job.
The rest of the year's just downhill from here, huh?
I was going to say, based on your topic, you should call Matt as well.
Yes. I actually have to call Matt. I've been listening to you guys for a while, and I'm like, sometimes I drop the phone, and I'm like, you know what? This is 2019. Maybe this is one of the New Year resolution I have to do. Just call Talk It in and call the other show with Matt. Yeah, so thank you guys for what you
Eric
guys do.
is swooning that you remembered the name of our show and not
Atheist Experience.
Yes. Yeah.
Actually, he's right over here
he's
swooning.
Right over there swooning. I can see him. So what did you want to...
I wanted to just get, I'm Nigerian, and I missed what Noah was saying about Nigerian. So...
I wasn't saying anything about Nigerian specifically. I was talking about a TV show out of Nigeria called Vultures of Horror.
Oh.
I do a movie review show called God Awful Movies, where we find really bad religious movies. And I don't know if you're familiar with Vultures of Horror, but it's this it's a Christian themed soap opera out of Nigeria, and it's just awful. So that's
I can tell you straight away that all the Christian movie in Nigeria...
all the Christian movies in the world, man, as it turns out.
Particularly the one in Nigeria is because there's going to be a lot of witchcraft.
Yes.
It's just,
people turning into skeletons all of a sudden,
Yeah, they do that.
Exactly. So I described myself as a theist on the way out.
Yeah, it says that.
And Jamie, you guys are doing a good work. I know I've said that a long time. But I wanted to get your understanding. When we talk about creationism and we talk about the creation of the world, what bothers you about, let's say, for example, when you have to explain the Big Bang to someone? How would you explain the Big Bang to me? So I grew up as a Christian where we are being taught about the whole Adam and Eve story. And
sorry to hear that.
For me, a lot of questions started coming up. But then when you present the Big Bang, I wanted to understand what is that? Like, I have an idea, but how does that explain?
So here's what I will say. In my mind, the Big Bang is complicated and difficult to understand. I don't have a sufficient understanding to teach even a single lesson in a science class on it. My basic understanding, very, very sort of basic, very, very basic, loose, probably not quite physics terms, is that matter and energy, the way that they function currently, was all in a very small space. And because the matter and energy that we think of as existing today existed in a different form, it's a thing that physicists and cosmologists describe as nothing, right? Like, so no atoms or quarks or whatever, or actually I think there were quarks, but they hadn't formed yet, something along these lines. And then a rapid expansion of those things resulted in them changing. But mostly what I would say is, if you're curious to learn more about this, ask someone that knows.
Right.
And which is what you're trying to do, and that's good.
Went over my head by
I mean, to be quite honest, it goes over mine as well. And I'm 6 foot.
So where I'm getting to is, can we say that is it okay to classify it as being mysterious? Like, so if you say, with all the explanations that you have given, why did all these things have to come up? What is the essence of the whole thing? Because
So
one of the things that our pastors and our bishops and our reverend is that it was God that was behind it, engineering all of these things. How do you explain the fact that does it worry you? Is it kind of mysterious to you, or how would you say?
Okay, well, so I would say it's definitely mysterious to me. It's one of the most, we're talking about like the nanosecond after time and space began. So yes, it's crazy mysterious. And with the same caveat that Jamie gave you, that neither of us are astrophysicists, we're not remotely qualified to talk about Big Bang cosmology in detail. There's a difference, though, between, I'm sorry, you asked if it was mysterious, and then you asked another, was it mysterious, and was it something else? And I can't recall exactly what you asked.
Yeah, it all comes down to being mysterious. Like, does it bother you? Does it worry you that...
No, I certainly wouldn't say it bothers me or worries me that it's mysterious. I'm actually excited by the fact that it's mysterious. The coolest parts of science are the parts where there's still some mystery. Where we're still digging in and uncovering new knowledge, where there's still new knowledge to be had. That being said, it doesn't bother me in the sense that that my worldview might be in trouble by it, or that I have less confidence in my worldview because of it, because my worldview is not necessarily based on Big Bang cosmology, right? So far, the Big Bang is the best theory that we have to explain the existence of matter, the existence of time, the nature of matter, et cetera. But that's it, right? Like, it is simply the best theory that we have, and it's given the enormous amount of evidence that we have, the enormous number of predictions that Big Bang cosmology made that were later proven true, or were able to be tested out, gives us a high degree of confidence in it. That doesn't mean we understand every last piece of it, right? But it's like that for most things, right? Like I know most of how my refrigerator works. Right? But there are parts of it that are mysterious to me. That doesn't make it, like, I don't worry whether my refrigerator is going to work because parts of how it works are mysterious.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to get that. And then, so I see a lot of time, I know I've watched Matt discuss slavery, and you guys have also made comments about slavery. Now, you guys don't subscribe to the Bible, and I understand the reason why. How would you explain slavery? How would you explain what happened then? Because would you say that was part of our evolutionary process? How would you explain slavery?
So here's what I will say. As far as part of our biological evolutionary process, no, because biology doesn't explain or relate directly to sociology or the history of human interactions. What I would say is, particularly if you're talking about European colonization, there were groups of cultures that developed in Europe, discovered other parts of the world, developed ships and a desire for industry and to harness the raw materials from around the world, and decided to enslave other humans that they viewed as different or other. And the very sort of stark, difference in appearance probably better enabled them to behave in an inhumane way and enslave other people in a very sickening and disturbing way. But no, I would say it's a terrible thing that happened, right? But I don't think that it was necessary or good at any point, if that's sort of your question. I mean, I also don't see how the Bible or God explains that at all, right? Like, in my mind, if you...
Okay. Sorry, the idea I was bringing out is that if the assumption is that the Bible is false, then it simply means that slavery is what we human beings did to each other. Is that a better way to explain it?
I'm sorry, would it be different if the Bible is true? Wouldn't it still just be a cruel thing that we did to each other? I'm just trying to clarify your point.
Yeah.
Yes, of course, because it's the way that there's, I think Matt would say, that means God is a moral talk. Right? So
I mean,
I think I was just trying to understand, because now I'm getting to a point where in my life that I can no longer hold on to the crap that I've believed in growing up as a child.
Good for you.
My dad is a pastor. I grew up in the church, literally, and I've seen a lot of things. I would tell you that I have prayed for a dead person before, and he did not wake up. And I have prayed for a blind person, and the blind person did not see.
It's interesting how that used to work until we had medical records and photography, right?
Yeah, because you guys did a great job in trying to, because a lot of times I see that they just smuggle all these things into the preaching. Oh, we prayed, 1,000 deaf ears were open, something blind eyes were open, and they say, oh, you can do this, and these signs shall follow they that believe. In my name they shall cast out devils. In my name they shall do all these interesting things.
And then it doesn't happen.
I actually took myself to a place where there was a dead person. We were actually told to go and console the family. And I told the other pastor, I'm like, you know what? The Bible said we can raise the dead. Why don't we just pray and raise the dead and do some?
Because in the end, you only pray for things that can happen.
Right.
Oh, we were there for 2 hours,
Yeah.
And I did not stop at that point because I felt like maybe something was wrong with me. I didn't fast enough, or maybe I did something bad the previous day, and maybe God's.
You blame yourself rather than the truth value of.
Oh yeah, exactly. And the same thing, I summoned up faith again, prayed for a blind person. Same thing happened. The deaf person.
Yeah.
And it began to poke hole into what I have grown up to believe, and I feel like it's all a lie, and I'm finding it difficult to really just say it is a lie, because everything is like my whole worldview is literally coming to me.
Yeah. Well, it's very difficult, obviously, when so much of your personality and your life is built on this one thing to say, hey, maybe this thing is incorrect. But I think you're hitting on a really interesting point, and one that I think is underappreciated by a lot of people who are still in religion, which is, you said, I prayed for this person, and the prayer didn't have the effect that I thought it was going to have. So I immediately assumed, right, like most Christians would, that I had prayed incorrectly, or that I was not worthy of this, or what have you. And interestingly enough, when you see right, like when you look up a fun science experiment on YouTube or whatever, right? They won't say, and then you pour the vinegar on the baking soda, but you have to really believe, or something like that, or but if you've been sinful, so and that's a way that I think religion insulates itself against empirical testing.
Yeah, if it didn't, it wouldn't be around.
Yeah.
And so what I will say is, indoctrination from a young age, which is being told, no, here are the answers, don't think about them, right? And the second part often goes unsaid when you're in a particularly religious community. It's a disservice that was done to you. I'm going to be a little bit more blunt than I usually am today. I don't know why, but I'm going to do it.
I have that effect on people.
It's a disservice that was done to you by your parents and your community. And to be quite honest, I don't blame them, because it was done to them as well. And it's been passed on from generation to generation, actually, from those same European colonizers
now that you
before.
mention it.
But in the same way that a member of a cult cannot psychologically understand what it is to leave. I don't know how familiar you are with what happens to a person's mind when they're in a cult, or how difficult it is for them to leave. In the same way that an alcoholic, even though they will know and want to stop drinking, is compelled from actually chemical things in their brain to not stop drinking. It's not entirely chemical. It's kind of the negative version of therapy done to children when minds are still forming that affects the ability of a human being to reason, right? Like if you were trying to decide, should I buy, I don't know, one fruit or the other fruit, right, at a market or wherever, or you're trying to decide what to do with your money, you're trying to make a decision, you think about it and you'd go, oh, okay, well, here are the pros and cons of option A, and here are the pros and cons of option B, and there's no real part of your brain that's dictating to you that you can't think about it, and that those human processes that you use to make reasonable decisions, you can't use, oh, don't think about it, don't use your mind. But those things exist when it comes to religion because of that indoctrination. And it's...
Yeah, I totally agree with you, because there's a point you pray, and the idea is when you pray, it's gonna get answered. And when it's not answered, and they tell you, pray until something happens, or maybe you don't need it at the moment, or
it wasn't part of God's plan, and
that he sometimes changes, but sometimes doesn't. It's indistinguishable from, right? Like, so the phrase, pray until something happens, you can replace it with, sit in your house until something happens.
Wait until something happens. Yeah,
until
exactly.
something happens. So
wait, don't you?
So
there was something I think Eric said on the show, and it struck me, and that was some of the things that really helped me. He said something about prayer happens at the rate of chance. Like, what is the chance that it's going to happen anyways, and what is the chance that it's not going to happen? And I begin to evaluate a lot of things that I have prayed for in my life, and I see that at the end of the day, it's actually me getting things done. Mm-hmm. It is me providing food on my table. It is me protecting my family. It is me getting everything done.
Right.
Because God sits down there and allows a little girl to be raped. And then a stupid pastor explains to me that God does not interfere with free will.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so God decides to honor the free will of the person raping and ignore the free will of the person being raped.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, please. No, please.
Well, I just, people are, religious people are fond of, the first apologetic most of us hear is God works in mysterious ways. And I've always taken issue with that. It's like, I can predict exactly the way that God's going to work, right? Like God's going to work exactly at the same rate of random chance every time. If I pray over a dice, God's going to give me a 6, 1/6 of the time,
Yeah. If I drop these sunglasses, God is going to work like gravity.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yes,
exactly.
Nice,
as mysterious as he is, he's never going to make them fall up.
Yeah, as mysterious as he is, when we measure the universe under a microscope, he acts the same way every time.
Yeah, exactly.
But
oh my God, like it's I'm sorry, I'm all around, because it's like I'm evaluating all this information, and for a very long time, I was in a meeting, like a church meeting, and we're talking about the problem of evil, and basically the evil things that happened in the Old Testament, like the war, God giving people instructions to kill people. And a pastor that I so much respected told us that, and all this evil that happened in the Old Testament was not God giving instructions that it was not he was literally saying it was not God ordering it. And I'm like, these are prophets of God.
Yeah.
These are people acting in the name of God. So how do you differentiate these people from God? Mm-hmm. And I saw a careful way of the pastor trying to separate those acts of evil
from God.
Because it came from the premises that God is good and in him there is no evil. then I look at the scripture that says that when God himself says, I am good and I'm evil, I create light, I create darkness, I'm like, what am I supposed to believe now? If he is telling me that he is both good and evil, and I cannot wrap my head around the fact that God is evil, because if God is good, then where did evil come from? And the problem of evil,
if a God
like talking
existed.
about the slave trade, talking about all these crazy things that are happening in the scriptures, even talking about creation itself.
Yeah.
He created man and he put him in the Garden of Eden, and he told him, why
according to the
tell
story.
him So according to the story, like why did you put the tree there? And how did it get
right. So here's the thing, is sort of like the apologetics that are done for these stories can be done for any story, right? I'm sure, given enough time and given enough extra teachings, someone somewhere can come up with, I don't know, actually Voldemort in the stories isn't the villain. That's a misinterpretation.
Right.
He was trying to say blah, 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 right? And they can do that because if you're allowed to make up whatever you want, you can make up an ending of the story that you want. And as long as you don't look too closely at the text or think about it too critically, you can believe. And so what I will say is that's what happens with stories that aren't true. Do you think that the stories in the Bible are true? Do you think there was a literal Garden of Eden?
Which is the question I wanted to ask you guys. Would you say, because one of the things that is constantly pushed out is that the Bible is an historical book that has been there for a very long time. How do you classify the Bible? How do you classify it? Do you classify it as entirely false, or how exactly do you? Is it actually an historical book, or what is it?
So I don't find the text of the Bible particularly reliable for the recording historical events, right? So there's parts, for example, in the New Testament where they're talking about why Jesus of Nazareth was technically born in Bethlehem, right? I mean, the real reason is they needed their Savior to be born in Bethlehem in order to fulfill prophecy. And in the Testament, it says, there was a census taken when whatever was governor of, I forget the place, and so was the emperor of Rome, right? Which is the equivalent of saying when George Bush was governor of Texas and Obama was president. These things didn't happen at the same time. And also, there was no census, and we know that.
Also, the census isn't even logically possible. The whole go to the town of your fathers. Like, where would you go?
Why would you do that? Why would you not take a census of where they are now? As opposed to and then also it's like, so your father was born in a different town, so you're going to go where your father was, and your father's going to go where his father was. It doesn't make sense. And as long as you don't think about it and don't look at it, you can just sort of like pretend, that's true. And as long as you don't think about it, sure. Like, it's logically possible for people to walk around. It doesn't make any sense at all. And at the point at which stories literally do not make any sense at all, I don't believe they're true, right? I do not believe the legend of Jack and the Beanstalk, where overnight a giant beanstalk grew and he was able to climb into the clouds, which is a world of giants, right? Absolutely no part of that is feasible to believe. And I don't for that reason. And when there's historical events, accounted that, it's possible for people to be owned as slaves. It's possible for an entire nation of people to be owned as slaves. When archaeologists from Israel went to Egypt to look for evidence of a large population of Jewish slaves in Egypt at any point in time, they concluded, no, Jews were never en masse slaves in Egypt. And so when you ask me, do I think that the Bible is a historical book? No.
I mean, in the sense that it's been there since, way early.
It's really old.
Yeah, exactly.
It's been translated a bunch of times, right? Like in the same way that, sure, do I think that the Iliad and the Odyssey, right, like legends about, the Trojan Wars or whatever, are historical books? No, I think that a couple of Greek states got into a large war is reasonable. However, ooh, there was a guy and he was mostly invincible except for his ankle, and they were fighting over, spoils of war, and that's why the Greek gods got involved. At the point where you've got invincible people that can only be killed with their ankle because a mythical river underground that we also know doesn't exist was used by his mother, who's a god that we also know doesn't exist. At that point, I'm just sort of like, okay, there was a war, and then you decided to add a bunch of fairy tales. Cool. I don't mean to besmirch people's grandfathers, but it's sort of like, yeah, grandfather, I believe you fought in World War II. No, I don't believe you punched Hitler in the face personally, right? Like, there's a certain level of like, oh, okay, so-and-so stole an apple from so-and-so. That's a reasonable story. So-and-so flew in with, winged shoes and flew in and did all these sort of magical things. There's no reason for me to believe that that's true. So while there are Christians that will go, oh, no, look, Jerusalem was there, and look, this city got destroyed, and that happens, right? It's sort of like, it's an example that's used on the show before. There's this superhero story, Spider-Man, and in the story, he lives in New York City. New York City exists, Spider-Man doesn't. So when you ask me, is the Bible a historical book? No. It it tells stories that supposedly happened in history, but I have no reason to believe that it's accurate whatsoever.
So is it, because, I'm listening to what you're saying, and I'm trying to figure out how this book has come to be something that is popularly held.
Well, you've got to keep in mind when we're talking about the evolution of the Bible and how it became popular in the day, that for a very, very long time in the history of the Catholic Church, it was forbidden for Christians to read the Bible. Right? The Bible was in Latin. The common people didn't speak Latin. When Martin Luther decided to translate it into common English, there was there was wars, and there were deaths, and there was massacres and everything. And this was a huge, huge deal. People were very, very upset about this idea. Now, some people thought it was a great idea, some people didn't. But for a very large portion, especially of Christian history, the Bible was a mystery to the people who were supposed to believe in it, right? And the authorities didn't want them to look into it, right? So when you try to ask yourself, because there are parts of it that are nonsensical, like literally nonsensical, and directly contradictory. So when you ask how the Bible got to where it is, one of the things that you kind of have to keep in mind is that it got where it was without anyone, or without the common believers even knowing what was in it, right? So we can't really look to what was in it to find out why it gained the popularity that it did, or gained the sway that it did. It was just a really thick book full of.
Eric.
Oh, sorry.
Eric, why? I know I'm asking a lot.
So I think I understand what you're saying is why would it?
Why did I believe it? Like, why am I just?
You were told as a child it was true.
Finding out that
you were told as a child it was true, and most people, when they're told things like that don't result in either their death or their maiming, and they're told things that are false as a child, they continue to believe them, right? And
now I'm reading.
Because we are hardwired evolutionarily to believe our parents, because it's more advantageous to listen to the older people that tell you, no, don't go play with the giant kitty cat, it's going to eat you, when you're a child and can get eaten by a lion, right? And that trust and that being told, no, this is the truth, this is the truth, this is the truth, that's something that affects how a person forms beliefs. And that is why I think you personally believe that. If you're asking how could a story that was false be believed and then be believed by the next generation and the next generation and the next generation,
yeah, exactly.
The answer is the same.
Exactly.
Because they were told as children. And
well,
because even if you're an adult, it's really, really easy to believe things that are false. It's easier than believing complicated things that are true.
Right, yes. The Big Bang is way, way, way harder to get your head around than let there be light.
Yeah, because it's like, oh, there wasn't light, and then there was. Sounds reasonable.
Yeah. You're right on that.
Yeah, that
And you know, with what you just said now, I am really afraid for my child because now I'm seeing things in a different light, and I have this little boy growing up, and every day of his life we've been taken into church. Not that I find any value in it anymore, but so he's gonna grow up to believe all this crap too, because I don't even know how to tell my wife.
Oh wow!
Like,
yeah,
I cannot. It is it is our whole life.
Mm-hmm. And to be quite honest, that's part of why the belief is so pervasive, because it's very possible, even with one or two non-believers that feel like they can't speak out, that the belief continues to exist. And yeah, like the issues like this of like, well, I don't really believe, like marriages between a person that believes vehemently and prays for rain every day and a person who's sort of like, well, it doesn't matter. They only really run into like, I can't ignore this type problems when there are children, because children cannot form thoughts independently to the same degree that adults can, right? And so parents have to guide their children in their thinking. There's all kinds of...
He's already shouting hallelujah now, and I'm looking at him and I shake my head. I'm like, oh my God.
How old is he?
Hallelujah. Gonna be 2. I think 22.
Oh, okay. Hey, so here's what I will say.
22 months. I'm sorry. 22 months.
Okay.
In 2 months. And it's the thing that I have, because I know that most likely you will tell me, is there any value in telling her or something? I feel like I hold a duty the same way that I stood up in the bus in Nigeria to preach to people. I would have evangelized to nothing less than 1,000 people in my lifetime. Going around preaching, going into the forest, taking this gospel everywhere. And I feel like because in a place like Nigeria, and I honestly wish you guys can maybe do something, and I'm going to think about something, because we are just sitting below these guys and eating up all this crap, and I feel like I cannot continue to do this. I go to church every day. I lead worship.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yes, that is how difficult. So I cannot even escape from church until I take a huge stand and say no more.
Well,
and that is the position where I found myself in now.
Yeah. That's rough. And now I want to offer up one piece of advice that may be useful and may not be. Obviously with a child that young, they're not going to be able to understand the nuances of the religion anyway. But one thing I would suggest, if you want to plant that seed of doubt with your son without having a confrontation with your wife, or without because obviously if she wants to raise him one way and you want to raise him the other way, that's going to lead to a huge amount of conflict. But one of the ways that you can do that is very early on, introduce him to other religious beliefs. Now, I'm not saying necessarily take him to other churches, take him to other religious services or whatever, but let him know what other religions believe as well. And then he'll automatically have in his head, like, wow, the religions all believe different stuff, but the science all believes the same stuff, and that might be enough to provide that seed of doubt, as Matt Dillahunty's fond of saying. I believe it was Matt that coined it, but that you introduce a kid to one religion, you've indoctrinated them. You'll introduce them to multiple religions, and you've inoculated them.
Yeah, like I would say that, and then I would also point out things that the use of science has provided, right? Like, oh, well, church is fun. This is the one that we go to. Some people are Muslims, some people are Hindus, that sort of thing as well. Also, different denominations of Christian where that matters more. But also, hey, look, there's a car that wasn't prayed into existence, right? Like, Like, it wasn't, and it took human beings understanding things. But I think the most important thing, right, because it's very, very difficult, I understand that it's very, very difficult in your situation to say, yeah, I don't believe any of this crap. You don't, and that's good. You're free. Mentally, but not necessarily socially. What I will say is, I mean, we're coming up on the end of the show, and we kind of have to boogie here a little bit.
Okay.
But what I will say is, if you encourage him to think and question and learn, and you introduce him to the idea that there are multiple religions, you've done him a service that I'm willing to bet your father didn't do for you.
Oh, yeah. I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
And I think the last thing I wanted to ask you, is it okay for me to, like, share your videos on pages and all of that? Or do I have to get, like, your YouTube videos? Is it okay to share it and on, like, your website or something?
Please do.
Yeah, we would
share it everywhere.
Certainly appreciate
Post it everywhere. Play it with a projector on the side of a large building. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I honestly, if I was back
also
home
like
in
and
Nigeria,
subscribe.
I would definitely do that because you guys are doing a great job. Like, you have no idea what you help us to think. You help us to ask questions that we would not ask before, and the questions that you ask theists, people like me, and helped me to come to begin to question a lot of things, and I really appreciate what you guys are doing. Thank you very much. I don't want to hold you any further. Thank you. I appreciate you guys.
Thank you so much for calling, man.
Thank you for calling in. Yeah.
Thank you.
Go without God. There's one caller I desperately want to take, but I think my producer might shoot me. That, and you need a break between shows. Probably.
Yeah, at some point.
And some food. So I think we might have to wrap it up there. To our callers that are on hold, call back. Eric is staring Noah in the face to get the ending close. Let's get some love rings up. As always, this show is filmed at 1507 West Koenig Lane in the Freethought Library. And it's open 7 days a week. Stop by any day. Every Sunday, we have this show. We have the Atheist Experience. Every Friday, we have Truth Wanted. Every Thursday, we have Secular Sexuality. Every other Wednesday, we have the Nonprofits. Twice a month on Saturdays, we have Godless Bitches. Twice a month on Saturdays, we have Parenting Beyond Belief. And as we get good interviews, we have the Atheist Interviews. We produce a lot of stuff. Like and subscribe to all of it. Mostly this show. I like this show the best. Always tune in. Come and visit. If you don't believe, you have community here. If you do believe,
we don't hate you. We just think you're epistemologically incorrect.
No, Eric is crying. Yeah.